In 1922, on a remote farm in rural Germany, 6 people were brutally murdered with a pickaxe. But that's not what makes this case so disturbing. Days before the killings, the family reported footsteps coming from the attic, strange noises in the walls, and even a newspaper that no one in the house had bought. Then, after the murders, something even more unsettling happened. Neighbors noticed smoke still rising from the chimney. The animals were being fed, and someone was seen moving inside the home, as if life on the farm had simply continued, because after the family was gone, someone stayed behind, living in the house, walking the halls, watching from the dark. And to this day, no one knows who it was. This is the story of the Hinterkaifeck murders, one of the most chilling unsolved crimes in history. Some houses don't just stand in silence, they listen. In the frozen countryside of Bavaria, an isolated farmhouse sat surrounded by endless fields and thick woodland, far from the safety of nearby neighbors. Winter wrapped around it like a warning. Then the signs began. Footsteps echoed from the attic late at night, slow and deliberate, when no one was supposed to be there. Footprints appeared in fresh snow leading from the forest straight to the house, but never back out. A key vanished. A newspaper arrived that no one had ordered. Doors once locked were found open in the morning. Inside, the family carried on with their daily routines, unaware they were being watched. Meals were shared, animals were fed, children were tucked into bed. Days later, all 6 were found brutally murdered. But what makes this case truly terrifying is not just the violence, it's the chilling evidence that their killer stayed behind. Living among the bodies for days, in the remote countryside of Bavaria, near the small town of Weidhofen, stood an isolated farm known as Hinterkaifeck. In March of 1922, it was home to Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel. Victoria's 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Josef, and a newly hired maid named Maria Baumgartner. The family was known in the village as hard-working but distant, and rumors had followed them for years. Andreas and Victoria had previously been convicted of incest, a scandal that deeply isolated them from the community. Many locals believed young Josef may have been the product of that forbidden relationship. Whether true or not, the damage to their reputation was permanent, and the Gruber family lived under a quiet cloud of suspicion and gossip. The farm itself sat several hundred meters away from the nearest neighbor, surrounded by thick woodland and open fields that stretched endlessly across the Bavarian landscape. It was the kind of place where winter silence felt heavy and the nights were swallowed by complete darkness. Isolation was part of daily life at Hinterkaifeck. Supplies were brought in by cart. Conversations with neighbors were brief and often strained, and trust within the community had long since eroded. Despite their social standing, the Grubers were financially stable, known to keep cash inside the house rather than in a bank, a habit that would later raise important questions. Yet behind the sturdy wooden doors and the routine of farm chores, tension simmered quietly. Arguments were said to echo from the house, and Andreas was rumored to be controlling and harsh. By early 1922, the family's reputation, combined with their physical isolation, created an atmosphere where suspicion, resentment, and secrecy seemed to thrive, the perfect conditions for something dark to unfold unnoticed. Months before the murders, strange events began unfolding on the farm. The previous maid quit suddenly, claiming the house was haunted. She reported hearing footsteps in the attic and unexplained noises at night. She said the sounds were not like animals scratching or wind brushing against the roof, but heavy, deliberate steps that moved from one end of the attic to the other. Sometimes the noises would stop abruptly, as if whoever was up there had realized they were being listened to. On certain mornings, small but unsettling details added to her fear. A door slightly open that had been locked the night before, a tool misplaced, or faint traces of movement in the hay stored above the barn. She became convinced that someone was hiding in the attic space, silently observing the family's routines. When she shared her concerns, Andreas reportedly climbed up to investigate more than once, searching every corner, yet he always claimed to find nothing unusual. Despite that, the atmosphere inside the house reportedly grew tense. The family began double-checking doors at night, listening carefully after sunset, and whispering about what might be lurking just above their heads. What seemed at first like superstition slowly started to feel like a warning no one fully understood. Andreas initially dismissed her fears, but soon even he admitted something was wrong. He found a newspaper inside the house that no one subscribed to. He noticed footprints in the snow, leading from the forest directly to the machine room, but none leading away. A key went missing. The lock to the machine shed had been tampered with. At night, heavy footsteps echoed above their heads. Andreas searched the attic multiple times, but claimed to find nothing. Instead of reporting these alarming signs to police, he told neighbors casually, almost as if he didn't grasp the danger creeping closer to his home. On March 31st, 1922, the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived at Hinterkaifeck. Her sister walked her to the property, unknowingly becoming the last outsider to see the family alive. What happened that evening has been reconstructed only through physical evidence and chilling deduction. One by one, members of the household were lured into the barn. It's believed the killer created a disturbance among the animals to draw them out individually. Andreas likely went first. When he didn't return, Kazilia followed, then Victoria, then young Kazilia. Waiting in the darkness was someone armed with a mattock, a heavy farming tool similar to a pickaxe. Each victim was struck violently in the head. Evidence showed that little Kazilia did not die immediately. She survived for hours, tearing out clumps of her own hair in pain and terror beside the bodies of her family. After killing the 4 in the barn, the murderer entered the house. 2-year-old Joseph was bludgeoned in his crib. Maria, likely unaware of the horror unfolding outside her room, was killed in her bed. By the end of that night, 6 people were dead. But what makes this case uniquely disturbing is what happened next. The killer did not flee. For 3 days, someone remained at the farm. Smoke was seen rising from the chimney. The livestock were fed. The cows were milked. A neighbor passing by at around 3 a.m. claimed he saw 2 figures near the forest edge who turned away when noticed. Salesmen knocked at the door but received no answer. Inside, the bodies remained undiscovered, while someone moved calmly through the house. On April 4th, concern finally forced neighbors to act. Mail had piled up, and young Kazilia had missed school. A search party entered the property and discovered 4 bodies stacked beneath hay in the barn. The remaining 2 were found inside the house. Authorities arrived, but the crime scene had already been contaminated by villagers walking through in shock and curiosity. The autopsies revealed fatal head trauma in all 6 victims. Strangely, valuables and large sums of cash were left untouched, eliminating robbery as a motive. Even more bizarre, the victims' skulls were removed and sent to Munich for examination by clairvoyants, reflecting how desperate and confused investigators were. Those skulls were later lost during World War II. Over the years, dozens of suspects emerged. Some believed Victoria's husband, Carl Gabriel, who had reportedly died in World War I, may have survived and returned for revenge. However, multiple soldiers confirmed witnessing his death. Others suspected various local men mentioned by former employees of the farm, but none were definitively tied to the crime. Theories ranged from jealous lovers to vagrants hiding in the attic. One modern theory even proposed a connection to an American serial killer known for axe murders, but there is no evidence placing him in Germany. The more elaborate the theory, the more assumptions it required, and when applying basic logic, most collapsed under scrutiny. One suspect, however, consistently stands out: Lorenz Schlittenbauer. Lorenz was a neighbor who lived only a few hundred meters away from Hinterkaifeck. He had previously been romantically involved with Victoria Gabriel and had at one point accepted paternity of her son Joseph, before later denying it amid the incest rumors. In early 1922, Victoria was reportedly preparing to sue Lorenz for child support, which would have threatened his finances and reputation, especially since he had remarried. This gave him a clear and immediate motive. Unlike other suspects, his connection to the family was personal and volatile. Lorenz also had means and opportunity. He was familiar with the farm's layout and tools. It was confirmed that he possessed a key to the house, which could explain the lack of forced entry. If he had been surveilling the property, possibly hiding in the attic weeks prior, it would align with the reported footsteps and disturbances. As a neighbor, his presence would not have alarmed Andreas or the others if he approached the barn that night. The murders appear calculated and sequential, suggesting someone methodical rather than impulsive. The killer lured victims one by one, struck swiftly, then remained on the property to delay suspicion. Perhaps most unsettling was Lorenz's behavior during the discovery. When the bodies were found in the barn, he reportedly unlocked the house himself and entered alone. He later claimed he was looking for his son Joseph, an odd phrase considering he had legally denied paternity. He also moved bodies before authorities conducted a proper examination, potentially disturbing evidence. While none of this proves guilt, it paints a troubling picture. Over the years, Lorenz was questioned multiple times, but never charged. He filed defamation lawsuits against accusers and died in 1941, officially an innocent man, though suspicion never left him. When modern criminology students reanalyzed the case decades later, they concluded that one suspect fit the profile better than all others. Though they did not publicly name him out of respect for surviving relatives, the implication was clear. The simplest explanation requires the fewest assumptions. A neighbor with motive, access, and knowledge of the farm. Not a ghost, not a drifter, not a resurrected soldier. Just someone close enough to walk across the fields in the dark. The tragedy of Hinterkaifeck is not only the brutality of the crime, but the eerie calm that followed it. A killer who fed animals beside corpses. A farmhouse that seemed haunted not by spirits, but by secrets and resentment. In the absence of DNA evidence and preserved forensic records, absolute certainty may never come. Yet when examining motive, proximity, and behavior, one name rises above the rest. The most likely scenario is not the most sensational. It is the most human. And that is what makes it terrifying. More than a century later, the murders at Hinterkaifeck remain officially unsolved. But the silence of that Bavarian farm still echoes with unanswered questions. Was justice simply missed by the limitations of 1922 investigations? Or did the truth hide in plain sight all along? If you found this deep dive chilling, thought-provoking, or eye-opening, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more true crime mysteries, where we separate speculation from probability. And tell me in the comments, do you believe the neighbor theory, or is there another suspect you find more convincing? Thank you for watching.